Canadian born. Well, sorry, not Canadian born, but Canadian citizen.
There it is.
Lawrence Gowan, of course, in Styx, solo artist. He's got some solo dates coming up in Montreal, Quebec, and that's where we're at.
Yep.
Plus, Styx, they're on tour right now. Plus, they're the Venetian. They're doing a residency at the Venetian.
Correct.
Pieces of Eight, I believe. Pieces of Eight will be the album that will be played at the residency. This sounds like amazing. Non-stop, Lawrence. Non-stop.
It's non-stop entirely. In fact, 20 shows in this month alone. So there's, like 8, what is it, 7, 10? Sorry, 10, 10 Styx shows and 10 GOWAN shows.
Protect that voice, my friend. Protect that voice.
And I just want to mention the dates. It's January 23rd to the 31st at the Venetian, which is beautiful. Been at the Venetian. Love it there. It's probably my favorite place to stay.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful residency. So
we did a residency there earlier this year, where we played Grand Illusion in its entirety. And so this time it's going to be Pieces of Eight in its entirety. And we're looking forward to that very much.
So, Lawrence, I thought that'd be a good place to start. So, as you said, you guys did the Grand Illusion. Now we're moving to Pieces of Eight. Yeah. So, is this a thing? Like, talk to us about how this is going to work. So, obviously, you'll do Pieces of Eight, and I guess Pieces of Eight isn't enough for a full show. So, there'll be maybe some pieces from the new album and hits.
Yes, there'll be Pieces of Eight and then Pieces of Hits in the show. That's how we conducted it. We did a tour in, I believe it was 2011, maybe 2010, where we played just the Grand Illusion and Pieces of Eight in their entirety. Yeah. And we did a DVD of it, and it was really successful. And now it's just we've come back around again these years later, where people want that album experience. They want that to kind of roll out in the order that the songs, in the sequence of the album. So as we're doing, Grand Illusion, that means Comme C'est la Vie comes fourth in the show, which is really odd, in a weird way. But then it becomes, after a couple of shows, it becomes second nature. You really kind of sink into the album experience in a live sense. And what's really amazing about it is at least I realize everyone listens to albums quite normally on their own, and they're usually a solitary experience where you begin to concoct this spirit, this sort of cinema of the mind, so to speak, theater of the minds, where you connect to an album or to an artist or to a band in a very unique fashion, depending on how that album speaks to you. And when we do that live, you're seeing thousands of people kind of taking a very, very individual experience and kind of sharing it with thousands of people. And it's amazing to see just how well that kind of unites an audience in a very distinct way.
It's amazing because this album, for myself and Perrin, I'm sure for you, I mean, even though we weren't part of it, it was part of our lives.
Yeah.
What do you remember when you first heard Pieces of Eight for the first time? I'm sure like on Canadian radio it was playing.
I remember the first song I remember hearing from that was Blue Collar Man. Yeah. And I loved that organ intro. I thought was really, really catchy, etc. And then honestly, over the years, the lyrics to that song have taken on deeper levels of meaning. And I've said to Tommy I think that's, if I had to pick the best lyric he's ever written, I think he really encapsulated the idea of the nobility of work. All work is noble, that sort of expression, and how that relates to just the common person that just wants that in their life, something that they can be proud of accomplishing, and a proud accomplishment. And it can be what we may take as a menial task can actually have great significance to people's lives. Just look at the fact that today we have so many competent maintenance people, and boy, when I meet one, I'm telling you, I hang on to that person as long as I can, because I'm useless at doing that kind of thing. So Blue Collar Man hit me first. I think the next song I recall hearing was Great White Hope, which I thought it had all the energy of a song from The Who, and very much a distinct kind of type of rock, again, fairly intelligent subject matter, and JY's vocal was killer on that song. So, and then it goes through to I heard the entire album, but I remember those two songs first.
So, Lawrence, how do you balance as an artist? Because you guys put out a great new record, Circling from Above, in July. Yeah. And I actually think you guys have done 3 records in the last maybe 8 or 9 years, Circling from Above, Crash to the Crown, and The Mission. Yeah. That as a longtime fan and an open-minded fan, I'll say, are great, great rock records. Because you guys were dormant with new material for a while. Like you did the cover thing, and it had been a long time since Cyclorama. But now you guys have been pretty active with new material. So how do you balance, fans, a certain element of fans thirst, and we all thirst for nostalgia, but there's people who really like these new records, and you guys being in the creative space you're in. So how do you balance kind of making sure everyone gets what they need, including you?
Exactly. Well, actually, the last part of your question there, Perrin, is the most relevant. It's just the way of satisfying the musical hunger that exists within a band is by coming up with new things, new ideas, feed that part of the band's spirit, so to speak, because there's the road ahead always needs to be considered. And as much as we're aware of the fact that it's the legacy of the band that people buy tickets to see, displayed, etc., it's the experience overall of what a rock band is living through that people, vicariously become part of as they follow the entire arc of that band's career. That includes the new records. And we do lament the fact that, a lot of our favorite bands, for whatever reasons, they don't seem to throw themselves in as passionately to making new music as they perhaps did when they were younger people. And I don't mean to say this in a disparaging way. I just want to say that with us, we try to hold to a standard that I think that the band established a long time ago, long before I was a member of Styx, and kind of hold up our new work to the mirror of what the past is kind of challenging us with. And I think that The Mission and Crash of the Crown and the new album Circling from Above stand up to that. That's our own unbiased opinion on it. But when we see little things like readers' polls and various publications that'll say that begin to rank the top 10 or the top 5 Styx albums of all time, and you begin to see The Mission or Crash of the Crown and now hopefully Circling from Above enter into those usually fan-based voting lists, that tells us that we kind of set our trajectory or our compass in the right direction and tried to come up with things that are really satisfying for the audience, but most of all satisfying for us, that we feel kind of worthy of carrying the name forward.
What songs would you like to see in the set list that perhaps aren't on the set list? There's so many songs, right? For me, I'd like to see, I'll tell you what I'd like to see. You want to hear what I'd like to see? Heavy Metal Poisoning.
Yeah.
That's like a James Young song. It's
we are the metal voice after all. So.
and I love how that song was a stamp of an era at a time when it was considered like poisoning. I don't think you guys have ever played that.
I don't think we did a song with JY's called Heavy Water that came out on the Brave album right before I joined the band. Or was it on Cyclorama? Oh, darn.
Doesn't matter.
Anyway, Heavy Metal Poisoning is that's a very cool song, very James Young song, as you say. I'll quote JY.
Okay.
I used to in my first 5 years. I've been in the band now 26 years, and in my first 5 years, I used to get heavily involved in choosing what songs were going to be in the set list, and then after about 5 years, I decided I'm just going to extricate myself from this process every single day. It becomes painful.
It does.
And JY one day just said, "We just have a terrible embarrassment of riches when it comes to great songs to play." And I thought, a terrible embarrassment of riches is really what a great problem to have within a band. I think that's the case right to this day, and it becomes even more expanded upon particularly with these last 3 records. And hopefully one day Heavy Metal Poisoning will make it back in, because you never know. I mean, for years I was in the band and we didn't play Mr. Roboto, and now we do. So
Well, there's a great segue because I remember seeing you guys of Joan Jett and Tesla, whatever number of years ago, and I
Right.
think that was the first tour that Mr. Roboto came back to the set.
Right. That's
After
right.
JY and Tommy were kind of adamant for the longest time that that's just an era they wanted to kind of put at the back of their minds. And
Yeah.
I was wondering, is it you and Todd and the newer guys in the band who were kind of saying, guys, people really want to hear it? Or is it really them saying, okay, it's time? Like, how does putting a song like that maybe was seen as controversial, and if not controversial, maybe represented not the happiest time for some of the classic members of the band? How does it all happen?
That's the key. Okay. As you do have two factions within the band. It's one whole entity, but you have the newer guys. I mean, Todd's only been in the band 30 years. Right. And you have the newer guys that look at this like, we really dig in on the history of the band because we weren't part of it. Okay, we didn't have to live through the pain and anguish, along with the great, obviously great highs and exuberance and the kind of exalted stature that the band rose to. We didn't live through that, but we have a perspective on it, and our perspective is informed very much by what JY, Chuck, and Tommy would have to say about it. But then time has an influence on how people view things and your perception of things. And I will point out, as I have in the past, I've never, ever heard the JY, Tommy, Chuck ever be disparaging of the Kilroy Was Here album. Never. They are extremely disparaging of that era of the band. And that's part of what you said in the question.
Yeah,
Basically, it was the disintegration of the band they were looking at. I have a feeling that much like the Peter Jackson new version of what happened during Let It Be, right?
Yeah.
As compared to the Let It Be that I saw when I was a kid, or early teenager, they came out that looked very much like a band disintegrating, and a band that had reached a point where they weren't as enamored with each other's company, both musically and personally. Then to see a different camera angle suddenly emerge, where it's like, no, there was a lot of joy and a lot of really great things that happened then, and you just kind of have forgotten those. Well, eventually, Mr. Roboto took on that kind of a perspective, in that it was not the song, it was the era that they were most at odds with. We, on the other hand, we don't carry any of that baggage. And at the time, and I've said this before too, I heard Mr. Roboto in the early 80s as being a kind of a kitschy song. And then over time, I've become to see it as, no, it wasn't kitschy. It was a very prescient song, a song its relevance has deepened over the years. And I think what the band emerged with in that era, what Dennis DeYoung brought in, and what the other guys, as a band played around with, because there were a lot of elements in there that obviously are of JY and Tommy's character particularly. Eventually, it just became, we're like, this is a part of the band's history, and it should be displayed in front of the audience. It just should be. And funny enough, it was because we were touring with Joan Jett that it eventually won that argument. We won the debate, not an argument, the debate, and because we just thought, well, what's something that we can really contrast with Joan's set, like really contrast, because that's part of what you want to do in these package tours. Is Joan's got so many great songs of her character, and Styx, what can we hold up that really people aren't expecting? And that's what really won the debate. That, and the fact that we went into a soundstage studio and rehearsed the song for 2.5 days, basically. We rehearsed it over and over to decide whether we're going to put it in or not. So the live version that we do of Mr. Roboto is very much informed by the new members of the band. It's a much more gritty, visceral, whatever kind of word you want to use to describe it, rendition than what was originally recorded in the early 80s, which made perfect sense for that era.
What's interesting about, I don't want to harp too much on Mr. Roboto, but at its time, it represented the era, right? The 80s.
Yeah. Yeah.
And today it represents the AI time, you know?
Yeah.
It's so
That's right.
strange how it's actually come to fruition in a way, that sort of idea, right?
It has. And as I say, we very much stand on the shoulders, if you want to call it that, or the Chicago term, or we very much are the culmination of all the efforts of everyone that's ever been in the band. So we have the responsibility of upholding that. That's really what we walk on stage every night with. And again, yeah, you're right. I mean, the song went from being. See, at the time, so many bands of the 70s, the bands I love that really embraced progressive rock, okay? And Styx were the only British band that did it
Yeah.
successfully,
Yeah.
to my mind, before anyone did, okay? And where they took progressive rock elements and then a pop sensibility mixed with a rock edge that suddenly, brought a lovely kind of recipe to the music. They had all those bands, yes, Genesis, they all had to make fairly difficult transitions from the 70s, mindset of a band into the 80s. And at that time, you listen to the way Queen suddenly shifted from Bohemian Rhapsody era to the Body Language era. It was not easy for bands to do that. And sometimes member changes were necessary, in the case of Yes, for example. And sometimes they, at the time, when you're just a fan, they were quite jarring. But over time, you begin to kind of see the perspective of what the band was aiming for and what they actually achieved. And some of those songs have withstood the test of time. I remember the first time hearing Owner of a Lonely Heart, thinking, this is
What the heck?
yeah, this is really different for Yes.
But it was great.
Now it's such a standard piece of it. It's such a, I hear it in the lineage of everything else they did in the 70s.
Yeah.
I feel the same way about Styx music from that era.
Well, appreciating eras of a band has become a thing, right? I mean, we've been talking a lot about Rush lately with the reformation of the band and that sort of thing. And,
Sure.
There's a 70s era and an 80s synth era and a 90s era and an even, 2000s era. And it's kind of fun that all these bands, now that you take a step back, you can be like, hey, I'm in kind of an 80s Rush mood today, or I'm kind of in a 70s Rush mood today. And the same for Styx and many other bands, really.
Great observation. That's a great observation. And really, the funniest thing about the rock era, let's say from 1956 to the present, is that the 50s and 60s part was so compressed with how many various styles emerged within such a compressed short time. And then beyond that, the 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s, they're very distinct as 10-year chunks, you know what I mean, of what a band, aimed for and what they were able to accomplish. And yeah, you can suddenly wake up and go, yeah, I want to listen to some 80s era, Grace Under Pressure Rush instead of the 2112 Rush. And then the next day wake up, with the opposite opinion. And quite honestly, another weird thing that happens with time is there were bands, and I don't want to mention names, but there were bands that in their 70s era, let's say, I was not enamored with, right? That wasn't my music for the time. And then in the 90s or the early 2000s, I would listen to that music again and go, what was my problem with this? Because this is really making tons of sense to me now. It's really strong. This has really it's resonating with me now. So again, another kind of testament to the magic that music offers us is that, with time, you can begin to hear music in a completely different light and have it enhance your life at a different time than it was actually released.
You're going to be playing Quebec. You're not playing Quebec. You're playing the province of Quebec and a little of Ontario.
And Quebec City.
And Quebec City. You're playing Montreal. You're playing Assumption. You're playing, I think, Sherbrooke, Drummondville. You're doing this tour here. So let's talk a little bit about that so people know about it.
Sure.
It's a Strange Animal tour.
It's this le 40e, right?
40th anniversary, believe it or not.
The 40e anniversaire de la Strange Animal disc. And it's we're going to play Strange Animal in its entirety, right?
and tell us how special Montreal is or Quebec is to the Lawrence Gowan fans.
It's Montreal has been such a conduit for the greatest things that have happened to me, or the biggest changes that have happened in my career. So, for example, I mean, first time I had a #1 song was in Montreal before it ever happened anywhere else in the country. The first time first time I signed autographs as Gowan was in Montreal. Funny enough, shortly after the Criminal Mind video was released. I'd also say that there's many firsts, but if we want to relate it to Styx, in 1997, that's when I got to do a show with Styx, and that's when they first saw me play live. And from that night came the phone call, a couple of years later, to join the band. So again, that happened in Montreal. Since then, other amazing things have happened. I've been back to the new, the Bell Center now it's called, to play with Styx on a couple of occasions. And so there's that. But then Montreal is much like Toronto is different from Ontario. Montreal stands as a unique place in Quebec. But there's the rest of the province as well. And I just love all the experiences I've had in like the Lac Saint Jean area or Beauceville or definitely Quebec City has been a phenomenal place for me to play over the years. And those other parts of Quebec and the culture of the Quebecois, the culture of the Francophone part of my country, right? It's a really valuable thing to me. It's had such a profound effect on my life, and I love revisiting those towns that embraced my music 40 years ago and do to this day. So I look forward to it as much as absolutely playing anyway, as much as playing the Super Bowl. I look forward to it.
So Lawrence, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this, but I mean, so I've seen you perform here in Quebec as a solo artist a number of times, and often it's a very poignant moment when you play a song called Pour un instant, written and performed by Serge Fiori and the great Quebec band Harmonium.
Yeah.
And to anyone watching this who's not based here in Montreal, please check out Harmonium. Please check out Serge Fiori. Please check out Pour un instant, because even if you don't speak French, it's a beautifully written song.
Yeah.
Serge Fiori sadly passed away earlier this year.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if it takes on any added significance. I hear you're still playing the song in the set, and just curious your thoughts on singing in French and songs that maybe meant a lot to you, and maybe the song takes on added significance to you now with the passing of Serge Fiori.
Well, of course, but the Harmonium, much like I was saying about the fact that Quebec, embraced progressive bands. When I first played in Quebec, which is February of 1977, with a club band I had back then, I took note of the fact that I started to hear, Quebec bands that we don't hear normally in Ontario singing in French, and I noticed Harmonium and the progressive elements that were in the progressive folk and rock. They'd done a great kind of blend of those elements, and I took note of it, and I remembered the song Pour un instant when I wanted to do a song in French, when I had not just enough confidence or just enough, overconfidence, whatever it is, to try to actually sing a song in French. And so I decided to do that one. It was that song and the success of that. I did a live cover of it, and the audience, of course, sang along to it, etc. And that came out on an album called GOWAN au Québec. And that's the record that I was touring in 97 when I wound up playing with Styx. And so it's become kind of, a perennial part of the shows I played in Quebec is to play Pour un instant. In fact, I did just over a week ago. I went in and played a 1-hour concert on Shome at solo piano, and of course, obviously the Serge Fiori leaving or his body leaving planet Earth, but his spirit is still extremely strong. His musical spirit, particularly, is so strong within people in Quebec that as I'm playing the song, I look out and I can see some people actually had tears streaming down their faces. So it's become a significant part of the show. I still love playing it.
Do you find that in the start of your career, it was mostly Canadian, mostly eastern part of Canada that was a GOWAN fan, let's say?
Yeah.
And you had trouble breaking into the U.S. Now with the success of, with Styx and touring for so many years, 20-something years, you find that more and more people are embracing the GOWAN solo work?
Well, I just played a show in Florida where it was GOWAN, Cheap Trick, Loverboy, Styx. And to see all the GOWAN T-shirts up front in Miramar Beach. We had this festival there. See all the GOWAN shirts up front and people singing the songs that I know are from far off places in America that never heard Strange Animal, or if they did, they heard it on import back then. They may have seen the video and was played, I think, twice on MTV. I had definite struggles with Columbia Records. I was on Columbia, who were fantastic to me in Canada, and completely shut the door to it in America, despite successful tours, touring with Tears for Fears, despite the fact of getting into the top 20 in both Cleveland and Pittsburgh, just on import. And they just had this kind of built-in thing back then, and it's boring to discuss really, but it's funny how life plays out. Had the door been open to me back then, there's no way I would ever be in Styx today. And I happen to love that aspect of my career, and the fact that Styx Play a Criminal Mind is, a weird and fantastic little thing that was not in the script to begin with. But those are the greatest things that happen to you in life, are the unscripted surprises that come along and wind up being wonderful roads to go down that you never anticipated.
Let's bring it back to Styx for a sec. And, Jimmy and I were talking a little earlier, and today's kind of a unique day because tonight is the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony.
Oh, is it?
It is. And the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, kind of a funny thing. Finally in the last few years, Journey got in and Foreigner got in last year. And tonight, what I'm most looking forward to is Bad Company being inducted. And
cool.
Nancy Wilson's going to play with some of the guys who are in the band, not Paul Rogers. Joe Perry's going to be there. But I guess I got to ask the question, and maybe take off your current member of Styx hat and put on your professor of musicology or just a fan hat.
Yeah.
Why is a band like Styx not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? And should they be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Should you be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
I don't know.
I think you should.
I think I should be too.
I think Styx is part of the great North American songbook.
Oh, look! Let's face it. It's like rock music is the most, is the great musical statement of the last half of the 20th century, and you certainly can't deny that Styx are not a pretty significant piece of that statement. Let's put it that way. As were the other bands that you just mentioned, and bands that, that eventually have gotten in, like Kiss or Foreigner or Journey, etc. Awards are they're very difficult to kind of how can I articulate this in a way? It's amazing to me when, and I'm not saying this is a disparaging thing at all, but bands that are in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame that open for Styx, it's kind of a funny thing, you know what I mean? And they usually point it out. It's like, how come are you guys not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? They'll say it that way, or it sounds, for me to say anything about it, just sounds like I'm whinging, that's the British, like I'm whining about it. And why would I be whining about it when we just, we're in the top 50 grossing acts in America year after year after year. My solo career, I can make the same complaints and a lot, and I'm playing, another sold out show at Massey Hall this year. Well, lots of artists that are no longer performing, or when they do, it's not that big a deal. They seem to sweep award shows, et cetera, and I guess we're just the Blue Jays of rock this year.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'll put on my fan hat and say, I'm kind of over. Okay, it's clearly the Music Hall of Fame. It's not the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So let's just agree that the best of every genre should be in there.
Yeah.
But if we say that album-oriented rock or classic rock or whatever you want to call it is a genre, then I definitely think the Journeys, the Styxes, the REO Wagons, a lot of the bands that you guys often package with are part of that. And like you said, bands that open, I mean, we're the metal voice. So Black Sabbath has been in for a long time, and Judas Priest finally got in, but why is Iron Maiden not in? Why are Motorhead not in? Like, there's just a lot of...
Oh, I would immediately, if I'm going to go into the metal world, I'd say, how could Dimmu Borgir not be in? They're my favorite of the metal genre. Or my son's band, well, he's not, they're not, they're too new. It's Seven Spires. They just did another great tour throughout Europe. Actually, they're playing, I think they're in Germany one more time tonight before they come home. But there are, uh, Children of Bodom. I mean, there are bands that have been around now over 30 years in the metal world that deserve to be in there just for their musicality and for that genre. Sorry, did I mention somebody that actually is in that I didn't know?
No, not that I know of. Not that I know of.
Because album-oriented rock and metal have been fairly ignored, likely for political reasons.
But as long as the rappers get in, we're all good.
Yeah, you see, that's it. And you see, again, it sounds like I'm whining because I'm not going to say that they don't deserve to get in. That's a genre of music I don't have enough insight into to say any more than I would be able to discern which country artist should get in. Although of course, Johnny Cash deserves it and all that sort of thing. But I really, it's. I'll tell you what's funny about this. I'm gonna quote I was managed by a fellow named Ray Daniels, who managed Rush and we were both managed for 14 years that I was with that company. And, when it came to the Juno Awards, Rush never really received the number that they were deserving of. Let's put it that way. And they would come second, usually, quite often. And Ray had this saying where he'd go, second place usually lasts a lot longer. And I thought, that doesn't.
A good way of putting it.
Well, what a good quote that was. So I'm happy to quote my old manager and say, that has turned out to be pretty much the case. And in a lot of ways, I think being in second place can lead people who lean into acts. Like take, for example, there's a band called Sparks, okay, for example, that I happen to really love. And I highly doubt they're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I don't think they are. But because they're ignored, it makes me love them more. I lean to them heavier. And I think that's part of what he meant about, the second place can last a lot longer. Your devotion to them and your sense of them being wronged, just you double down on your commitment to them, So maybe there's a silver lining to that.
Maybe that's why the Styx tours are so successful year after year, and you are one of the top grossing acts. Because I've never been at an empty Styx show, people. I've seen the band.
They don't exist.
Yeah, no, really. I mean,
so it's better to be the bridesmaid than the bride. That's what you're saying.
Well, as long as you get a good dress, yeah.
Here's the last question. It's a Rush question. They're coming back, and since we're all Canadian here, we might as well talk about it. What do you think about Rush getting back together? And
I'm so happy. I'm so happy for it. Alex Lifeson played on my fourth album, on the Lost Brotherhood album. He was the guitarist on that one, along with Kenny Greer. And I can tell you this because I don't know them closely, but I would meet with them every couple of times a year, usually at the office. And I've spoken with all three of them on several occasions. Obviously, Alex the most. Geddy would be second. I only spoke with Neil maybe twice that I can recall. Great. These guys, what people I think are beginning to kind of see, maybe because of Geddy's book or something like that, is they're really great people. I just perceive them that way, and so do millions around the world now. And they're so devoted to music and devoted to their band and what they were able to accomplish that to see them just, sit there on the shelf with their awards is not, it's not right. They should be out there playing. I know Alex, I saw a thing where Alex said that Paul McCartney came up to him and when they played, when they were playing the tribute concert to Justin Hawkins in England and said, you guys aren't playing anymore, or something like that. He goes, well, that's, why not? Because it's what we do. That's really it. The huge part of a musician's life is playing in front of people. It's the biggest part, quite honestly, in my opinion. And so to see them coming back, and I think, obviously the drummer they have in Annika Niles is phenomenal, tremendous choice. They seem to just make the right choice all the time. Hugh, I had to message Hugh Syme because he did a lot of artwork for my records as well. And what a wonderful logo that he came up with the stoplights and one bird having left the wire. Everything about it is just so artistically well done. So I can't wait to see that they're back in the arena.
All right. On that note,
Yeah.
January 23rd to the 31st, the Venetian, Styx.
Yeah.
You gotta go to Vegas and see Styx.
Yeah.
Pieces of Eight, as well as the GOWAN tour, the Quebec,
Yes.
Ontario GOWAN tour. That's November. Watch this.
November 19th
to 29th.
Yeah, 19 to 29. 29 it culminates at Massey Hall in Toronto, but we come through. We've got Quebec City as Salabert Rousseau and the MTELUS in Montreal on the 25th, and several other, Gatineau and several other ones. I think
some great rooms, actually. Some really great rooms to kind of see music in not an enormo-dome fashion.
No, this is it. You've got,
really nice rooms.
those theaters are so conducive to that whole to playing there. I really love the atmosphere that they evoke.
Yeah, well, you know what? Congratulations. You know what? We're proud to see a Canadian there fronting Styx. There's nothing like seeing one of our own fronting Styx, so it's really cool. Congratulations on that, and we're looking forward to all those tours. And everybody can check out Styx's website as well as GOWAN's website for all the tour dates.
Yeah.
Any closing remarks?
Great to chat with you guys, Jimmy, Perrin. Thanks for a great conversation, and I look forward to seeing you somewhere up the road. Hopefully, the 25th at the MTELUS.
Absolutely.
Have yourself a great day.
Thank you so much, Lawrence.
Okay, fellas. Cheers.